Hi, I'm Rosh from Energy Matters. Welcome to our podcast, Road to Zero, where we dive headfirst into all things renewable. Join us as we chat to industry experts, tech specialists, and some of your favorite TV and radio personalities, asking the renewable energy questions that you want answers to. Our goal, a zero carbon future. This morning, I am absolutely delighted to be joined by Sean Triner, co-founder of Moceanic and board member of WWF Australia. Good morning, Sean. How are you?
Good morning, Rosh, and good morning, everyone watching this. Thank you very much for tuning in. I feel like a bit of a fraud, really, when I see some of the guests that you've had before. I'm like, what do you want me for?
Well, look,
thank you for being nice.
I think as everyone's going to understand and realise throughout this conversation, you are far from a fraud. In fact, the reason from my perspective that you're on here today is twofold. Firstly, you support an incredible cause, being World Wildlife Foundation in Australia, which is absolutely fantastic. We're going to find out more about that cause a little bit later on in today's podcast. But also, you are the proud owner and of a stunning home, a 9.1 energy rated home that we had the pleasure of filming only last week. And to be fair, it's an absolute inspiration to anyone who's looking to build a property. So I definitely wanted to get you on today and just pick your brains about the choices that you've made for that property. And hopefully, anyone listening or watching the show can take a couple of those things on board and help us towards our cause of a zero carbon future. But Sean, before we get stuck into all that, let's find out a bit about yourself. Tell us a bit about your background, where you're originally from, what you're up to.
So originally I'm a forces kid. My dad was in the Air Force in England. I'm English, and I came here 20 years ago. In the UK, I was working in fundraising, so charity fundraising, basically forever, since 1988. I started in fundraising. I worked in disability, medical research, and mental health. And I was actually the acting CEO at a mental health charity called Mind when my CEO was sick. She went off sick for a while, and so I was acting just for a bit until she came back. And I really didn't want to be a CEO. I'm a good fundraiser, and I'm a terrible CEO. I want to be liked too much, I think, and stuff like that. So I'm not a good CEO. My personal passion has always been in social justice, reducing inequality. And when I moved to Australia, I set up a business to work in Australia in the area of fundraising and help charity fundraisers make more money, basically. My first full contract was actually with Amnesty International. I helped a couple of charities to do some appeals, but then I got a contract with Amnesty International, and shortly after, WWF. And both were record-breaking successes, raising 10 times more than they would have done than they spent on my business. So that was a really, really great return for them. Fantastic. Much more net income than the investment for working with us. And I kept that record up, working for many, many charities, Child Fund, although it was called Christian Children's Fund then, Heart Foundation, Cancer Council, lots of different types of organizations. And I'm particularly proud because my business actually changed the way a lot of fundraising is done in Australia. There's a particular way of digital fundraising now called two-step, and that was pioneered by my company and a charity called Soy Dog in Thailand. And it got to the point that Soy Dog was raising, which is basically a dog rescue center in Thailand, in Phuket, and that was actually raising more money globally from Facebook than any other charity, like more than World Vision, more than the big ones, with the exception of during a big disaster. And then everyone picked up what Soy Dog was doing, and now that is a standard practice fundraising initiative that we brought into the world, which was quite cool. I sold that business about 6 years ago. So that business was a lot of direct mail, digital, and a call center, and I sold that a while ago. And now I work in training. So now I can work with really small charities as well. So I work with tons of little small charities and a load of big ones as well. And I just love it. And the sessions that I have with my clients are just fantastic. It's all on Zoom. About 40% of them are in the US and Canada, 30% in Australia and New Zealand, and then the rest around the world. And one of my favorite clients is in Italy. And when COVID hit, remember COVID hit Italy first?
Yes.
They did some amazing stuff with us. First thing I said is ring your donors, ask them if they know how to pay their bills online, know how to do their groceries online, because the average age of their donors is about 70 years old. So they did that. Of course, they helped lots of their donors, and that's come back, and they had an absolute record year in 2020. And we took what we learned in Italy, put that out in America and Australia and New Zealand. Again, just fantastic. Spread that around the world faster than COVID, so we could actually get into places before COVID was a massive problem in terms of their fundraising. So that was being global there really kicked into its own. It was fantastic.
Did you find that with COVID, that accelerated the opportunity of digital fundraising? I mean, obviously, beforehand, and as we spoke about, I've been very privy to, face-to-face fundraising over the last 22 years. And I know you had a massive part to play with that in launching into Australia as well. But then obviously with COVID, with everyone being forced to do things via, digital via Zoom or, sort of video technology, did that accelerate that sort of pattern of fundraising?
It did. So things like QR codes and donor webinars in 2019 were QR codes are a waste of everybody's time. By the end of 2020, very important in all of your communications because everyone got used to using QR codes. So there was a big acceleration, but the numbers are still small. I mean, fundraising digitally in 2019 was less than 10% of all donations. And it went up, and it's probably more like 12 or 13% now, but most donations are still don't come through digital, but that's a huge increase anyway. And organizations like Soy Dog Foundation in Thailand, they make all of their money from digital. And WWF Australia, a very large proportion of our revenue comes in from gorgeous people making the decision online to support WWF's work. So yeah, it did. And also good for my business too. In 2019, people were like, can't you come down and do the consulting face-to-face? I'm like, well, yeah, but then you have to pay me to travel on an aeroplane and stay there and then back on an aeroplane using all that fuel, all that carbon, and we can't record it. Whereas if I just do it online, we can record it. And people are like, I'm just not used to that. Now everyone's used to that. So that was a good time to set up a Zoom business in 2019.
Absolutely. And that business, of course, is called Moceanic, which is, where did that name come from, by the way?
There's a very long story about, it was a very beautiful and love story with tragedy involved. But basically, after my mum died, I had to go. I was at the funeral in England and then traveling. And I spoke to my partner across the Pacific. We had to come back via conferences in America. And I'd just been speaking at a conference and I went out in LA into the water and I rang her saying, get at the beach. So she went into the water at the other side of the ocean. And she said, she was going to quit her physical business so that we could actually work on my new webinar business together, and so that she could travel with me and we wouldn't be apart in such difficult times again. So we did. So very romantic. And then when we got back, we were walking along the beach trying to think of a name, and Moceanic was born. And it was all about, truly global, really deep. In that the training we do isn't just you should do this. It's like you should do this, and this is exactly how to do it. And I give people all examples and templates and feedback and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of really practical training. So we wanted to be deep, we wanted to be global, and we wanted to make change. And we thought, so we called it Moceanic. So there you go.
Look at you, how heartfelt that story was. I never knew that. We'll learn something new about a person every day.
That's the short version. The long version I get you in tears.
Well, we'll have a few beers for that one when you tell me as well. But that's fantastic, Sean. Really, really cool, mate. And so let's move on to the actual, how we first met, which was filming just over a week ago, in the Gold Coast region, and you've built a and still completing, but pretty much finished, a stunning 9.1 star energy rated home, which is absolutely beautiful. It was built, the builder was Kai Construct, who we featured on our last episode, and that's Tim Sace, which is great. He's a great lad. As he informed us, there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of partners on that build. But once again, it was your, vision and your passion to create this home that really led the project and led the team. So tell me firstly, what is your motivation behind building that property?
Well, firstly, it wasn't just mine as well. My partner, Christiana, as well.
Sorry, Christiana.
I'm the extrovert in the family. So that's why you're seeing me, but it wasn't me that did a lot of this. But really, our motivation was around, we wanted to show that you can build a truly beautiful home here in the Gold Coast that doesn't cost the earth. That you can do it in a way that just really considers the future a lot more than what we normally do, where most homes are just built to code. There's a minimum standard set by the government, and if you go around and do a bit of a study, you'll see that nearly every home that has been built since that code came in is just above that minimum standard, and no one wants to go beyond that standard. And it's partly to do with price, but it's also to just do, I wouldn't call it necessarily laziness, because it's not lazy by the architects and the builders and the trades that are involved. It's just, there's no incentive. And maybe they just didn't know that was really an option. And indeed, when we had Gold Coast Open House, and we were the #1 house in the Gold Coast in terms of number of people that came, and you would talk to people who are thinking of renovating or whatever, or building, and you just talk to them about what we're doing and why we've done it. And they'd all go, oh, that's a really good idea. I'm going to do that now. They're not going to do everything that we did, because we went a bit over the top to get 9.1. But they're really thinking, okay, it is worth that bit extra, that 10 or 12% more to get double glazing, because you will make your money back on that. That's a no-brainer. But also, it's just better. It makes the house better. It's quieter. It doesn't warm up as quickly or cool down as quickly. It just is such a good thing. So we wanted to show people that there's some things that you can do. It's just about having, whenever you're making a decision, you're looking at form and function, right? Whenever you're making whether that's choosing a toilet or the way that a wall looks or the windows, you're looking at form and function. What does it look like, and what does it actually do? How does it perform? But what we want to do is look at form, function, and sustainability. So, or form, function, and impact. So not just it's beautiful, it's functional, it will do its job, but also what's its impact on the environment, not just in terms of the carbon impact, but just what's the impact, like where's it coming from? How's it being mined? Was it made by slave labor somewhere? What was the chain that actually arrived at this product? So really just thinking about those things. It's very interesting to get into it. You don't need to go into really deep, because basically you just ask the question on Google. Someone's already done that research for you. So you can find out pretty quickly about different products. Sometimes we had to drill down, so if there was really not many choices, and like with things like TVs or a projector or music systems and things like that, it's pretty easy to find out what their environmental policies are and just look at that. And one of our things was, if they don't have a target for being net zero carbon neutral in X time, if they don't have a 2030 or a 2035 target, then we're not going to buy that product. And that doesn't cost you any more money. It does cost you a bit of time. But it's just thinking about things like that. So really, and we wanted to show that you could build a luxury Gold Coast smart home, that it was super energy efficient. And so we did. And we wanted it to be a showcase. So we wanted to have Gold Coast Open House. We wanted to get into magazines. We don't want it to get into green magazines. I don't want to just be doing, Energy Matters type podcast, which is brilliant. I want to go to, broadcast things. We want to get to people who aren't already converted. Many of the people that will be listening to this, they've already made that intellectual decision. They've decided about that. And now they're actually doing their research, learning on what we can do, how we can do it. So we've kind of, the people listening to this, thank you so much. You're beautiful. You're wonderful. You're listening to this for a reason, and you've made that decision. I'm going to hopefully give you some tips, but we need other people. So if you are listening to this, please go and tell other people about not just this, but about the other podcasts as well. Get them just thinking about it. You don't bore them to death, but just tell them about the cool and easy stuff. I tend to find most people are particularly interested in it.
Absolutely. And look, what's fantastic is that, we've actually managed to feature that home on Open Homes Australia, which has a huge audience. I mean, it's an average audience for 450,000 viewers on each episode. So hopefully those, 450,000 will see this property on TV, I believe, next March, April-ish, and be as inspired as we were.
And they'll be normal people as well. They won't be just people who've really embraced that we have to do something about the climate and the environment. So yes. We do actually have, can you share the link for the Instagram? Or I can do that later. But that is Kingfisher House GC on Instagram. So please do check out some of the pictures there as well.
No worries. And guys, look, on the content, the text bit below this, you'll be able to find that URL. So I'll make sure that's added so you can click that link and have a look at it. So very cool, mate. Love it. So look, a couple of questions that came to mind, obviously, as a result of your property. So Australians are slowly moving towards electrification. What benefits do you see to us moving to an all-electric home?
The problem is that the biggest benefit, the biggest immediate benefit is not necessarily to the person building the all-electric home, other than form and function. I mean, it's wonderful having an all-electric home. There's a lot less things to go wrong in different ways. It's basically cleaner. But there's more to it, really. And the biggest benefit is the future. Because any fossil fuel-driven energy use, whether that's your petrol in your car, gas in your barbecue, or your aircon, which is probably driven, if you just plug it in, it's driven by coal, unless you're choosing a green plan on your energy. It's effectively being subsidized by people in the future. So at the moment, it's costing, as we record this, because it's changing a lot at the moment, it's 23.5 cents for us to buy a kilowatt hour of energy from our supplier, and that is green energy. But even so, the real cost of that energy, particularly if you were paying, say, 20 cents, but for coal-fired, which is what most Australians are doing, the real cost of that is it's not 20 cents, it's something like $1.40. It's just you're only paying 20 cents of it, and your kids are going to be paying, and it might be more than $1. I mean, you look at different estimates for it, and it varies dramatically. But the real cost of that is well into the future of what's going to happen as a consequence. The mitigation things that people have got to put into place because of climate change. The impact of those recent floods and the fires of 1920 definitely correlated with climate change. The cost of those was, if you just add up the additional cost of those fires and the insurance and all of the costs associated with those, they are at a massive amount more than what we're actually paying for our energy, but we're making those things worse. So it's the problem is it's quite an intellectual argument. It's hard to just get your head around, but the problem is it's far too cheap. And I know energy is really expensive right now. And for most people in Australia, that's actually has a big difference on perhaps what holidays you might take, whether you're going to have the heating on or not. And there are massive impacts, but effectively we're still paying, even when it's expensive, it's really cheap compared to the future cost. And it's really hard for us, because like if you're worried right now, you go, well, yes, but I've got to keep warm right now. It's not my problem about the people in the future. And you're right. And you do need to keep warm right now. And you do need to make sure that you can live right now. But we've also got to just try and move away from that and shift the whole thinking about that future, which I do appreciate is something that I can do because I'm privileged, because I actually have a little bit more money than the average median income in Australia. So I do appreciate that. But anyone who is in that position, and I think we have a responsibility to be basically doing what we can to electrify, reduce that impact.
Absolutely.
I mean, nearly all Australians get it now. So they understand the connection between fossil fuel burning and climate change. Nobody thinks that it's a good idea to continue to burn fossil fuels unless they're making a lot of money out of it. There's no one who really gets it and thinks, oh, yeah, that's a really good idea. They're just doing it who they are because, in the meantime, of course, we do need to burn fossil fuels whilst we transition, but we need to get across that transition. So it's a relatively easy thing to do if you are above the median income in Australia, or even probably a little bit more than above the median income. So, go electric where you can. And whatever you can afford to do, then do it, please, right now.
No, good man. And look, and just for those watching or listening, I mean, there are so many payment plan options out there. So really, with the purchase of solar power and or batteries and or EV chargers and or EVs, I mean, there's payment plans galore out there to help subsidize, or if not break down the payments to affordable monthly payments, with the intention then of using the savings that you're making off your electricity bills and or gas bills, can be then used to offset those costs. So, that affordability is the key, and certainly, tune in, visit our website. We'll hook you up with up to 3 local installers, and hopefully they'll be able to quote you according to your needs and your actual means. Very good, Sean.
When you look at solar, if you have somewhere to put your solar, that is a bit of a no-brainer. It's the main problem, of course, is that capital investment, and then you make your savings. But if you can get onto a decent plan for that, then that's and there are incentives as well in all states and territories now, is there? Certainly in most states and territories. So
there certainly is the federal. Yeah, the federal covers everyone. So.
Okay.
What I'm really excited about, Sean, is really with EVs. I mean, EV technology, because even those, like I live in an apartment, unfortunately, which sucks. It's just a large apartment block. But really, by having even if you're in a home that doesn't have the roof space for panels, in the future you'll be able to have your EV, hopefully charge that EV through renewable energy. But then the battery on the EV is phenomenal and potentially can be used to charge it and power your home. So that's something to be excited about for the future. I know that you do have your EV, which was awesome, and we got to film that too. We'll talk about your technology. We'll talk about your tech in a second, because I've got a cool video to play. Before I do, the builder that you chose for your property was Kai Construct, who was on our previous podcast. And what attracted you to those guys in the first place? How did you find them?
Well, it was actually through word of mouth, of course, is the first thing. So we really wanted a supplier with a reputation for high quality finish, and we went to see some of the building that they'd worked on, and we also wanted somebody to project manage the whole job. We work full time, and we haven't got a clue when it comes to building. We just don't know. I mean, and I can't put up a shelf, so I really wanted somebody who knew what they were doing. It wasn't so much a sustainable decision, because we couldn't really find any builders who specialized in that area that were available to do a job of this scale. But certainly early conversations with Kai Construct, Tim was very interested in learning. And because he's managing lots of different trades, we really wanted to get each and every, even like down to the plumber or the electrician, just to sort of say to a new client, hey, I just worked on this job, and would you be interested in doing this? And offering more sustainable options, and just getting them out there. I really don't know how well that's actually going to succeed down to every trade, but I'm pretty sure we've had a big impact with Kai Construct. So any conversation that they have with a new job, I would hope, and I believe that they will be really saying, hey, what about more sustainable options? So we really want that process to work. But the real big decision, actually, when we were building the house, the most important decision for us around the sustainability was to get an architect that really understood it. Now, not everybody uses architects. So partly by using the architect and working with Kai Construct, I'm really hoping that with Kai Construct, they will take on a lot of those learnings. But we picked an architect called PTMA here in the Gold Coast. And led by Teresa and Peter were the 2 architects involved in our project. And we wanted to get people who had an excellent track record on sustainability, and basically they'll only do jobs where the client wants to engage in those discussions around the area. So it's not like they make you do everything the most sustainable option, because sometimes that's just impractical. It doesn't meet the form and function criteria. So it's not like everything we did was purely what is the best sustainable decision. It was what, form, function, and sustainability every time, or form, function, and impact. Every single time for everything was form, function, and impact. So, some things it's really hard to get something that would actually tick all those boxes. So you're having to make some compromises, and they get that. I mean, that was really good. They're like, oh, you really don't want aircon if we don't have to have it. But we're like, yes, but we do want it in the top 2 rooms because, we want it.
We live on the Gold Coast.
Yeah, we live on the Gold Coast, and it's the humidity. But it is remarkable. We've had a few 31 degrees centigrade days with high humidity. And if all the doors are kept closed, you don't need the aircon. until the afternoon, only if you're upstairs. But if you're not upstairs, you still don't need aircon. In the Gold Coast on a sunny day at 31 degrees centigrade, the fans and the venting works. That is fantastic, unless you go up into the attic, which is where we have a couple of rooms. And then I'll put the aircon on, and I don't use it for very long, and and that's all I need. It's just brilliant what they did. So I do recommend that. Start with your architect, and PTMA by far and away the best supplier that we could find. They teach sustainability kind of in their architecture courses and stuff like that. Teresa works at university.
Well, there you go, guys. You heard it here first.
So really wanted to get them, and maybe we should put a PTMA, yes. So we wanted Kai Construct to just take over as much of it as we could, do all that liaison, get it all sorted, and they did a really, and you've seen the quality of finish in the place. So yeah.
No, very good. Well, look, so PTMA guys, Kai Construct, and they're the dream team, and then maybe give Sean a tinkle as well.
There's lots of others as well, Big Ass Fans. There's just so many bright green electric lights. Sustainable Cladding did a fantastic job with their zinc roof. We've got this zinc roof, right? But this is the zinc roof that we've got here, and there's not a nail in it. It's huge, and it's all hand folded, and it'll last for 100 years. I mean, it's just stuff like that. That's not just about carbon. That's about future carbon, but it's not aluminium, much carbon footprint, and it's just going to last. So it will less repair. It's just like Europe has a lot of zinc and copper roofs, and they're rare here to see a zinc roof. When people come, they love it.
One of the biggest, sort of statements I get from my mother, and before they passed, my grandparents, where everything back in our day was built to last, but everything in your day is highly consumable and lasts within within a year, if that, which is so true. And it really is worth the investment and the research to find things that can last. Like even that you're not going to have to constantly replace, because ultimately when you replace anything, that thing's gone through a manufacturing process, and is another drain on our resources. Both fossil fuels as well as just. Time and spend. So it's better to do the research and invest on something with durability.
So right.
One thing
generational. I was just going to say my home in London when I left England was built in 1867, and that's not unusual. That's just perfectly normal. And then I get here and can't find, there's nothing more than 30 years old. I'm like, wow, what happened to all the houses? Disposable houses here. But not this one. This one will be here for more than 100 years. I hope.
No, fantastic. Well, look, I can't, unless we get cryogenically frozen, I won't be able to be testament to that. But certainly our future generations.
Guarantee it. I'll bet you $100 it's still here in 100 years.
That $100 with inflation, I wonder what that'd be worth.
Yeah.
So let's move on. So I just want to touch quickly on toys, because I'm a tech fan, as everyone knows. And I just want to show a very quick video of some technology that you own that I absolutely adore. Give me 1 second.
And how good is this? You can have a conversation without the noise of the engine.
Which is actually amazing. And so for anyone watching this right now, you cannot even hear the sound of this boat. It's beautiful. So Sean, how long ago did you buy this boat?
I ordered it about just less than 2 years ago.
And it arrived how many weeks ago?
A few months ago, yeah. So the boat's made out of recycled plastic bottles and stuff. So it's it's all fully offset, recycled, shipped across from Denmark, and it was still probably the most sustainable boat we could have bought.
Yeah.
That was affordable in Australia. And obviously the electric engine, it's got a really shallow draft, very much floating on top of the water, so it doesn't cut deep, so very efficient with engines.
Beautiful. So we're living in the Gold Coast, mate. When you're in the Gold Coast, you've got beautiful weather, you've got water, you want to have a boat, but then to have an electric boat, which I absolutely adored. I mean, firstly, good call. And look, you've got both an EV and electric boat. I mean, what message would you give to Aussies looking to make the switch to electric vehicles?
Well, we're both of them. So basically, the boat was the price of a boat. No difference in price there. It's the batteries and the motor, the same as the car. And with switching to an EV car, which is what most people listening to this would probably be considering, there's two perceived problems when you're considering the switch. The first one is it's more expensive, and the second one is range anxiety. I said perceived problems because the range anxiety is really a perceived problem. We had that problem. We were really worried about range, but what about war? And it's really hard. You'll probably intellectually get it, but it's not until you've had an EV for a month that you go, oh yeah, it's fine. It really is fine. You just plug it in when you get home and it's fine. It's just full. You don't even need a fast charger. Unless you have solar, then you want to get a fast charger so that you're just using it during the day. But you just plug it in when you get home, and we never had a problem. Just trickle charge. Unless you're driving more than 200 kilometers a day, you can just, it does fine. Just leave it plugged in when it's not being driven. And we had big concerns about those. Range is definitely not a problem unless you live in a rural community or something and you're driving more than 300 kilometers a day. Then it might be a bit. Well, it would be an issue. Whereas if you're driving 200 kilometers a day, you'll be fine. You probably, if you're going between 200 and 300, you probably want to get a fast charger. They're not that much. But below that, it's absolutely fine. What the real problem is, and it is still a problem despite recent incentives from governments, is it's just buying it is much more expensive. The biggest problem in Australia is we have fuel efficiency standards. Every country in the world, every developed country in the world has fuel efficiency standards. We don't. So we're literally last at that. And I'm hoping with this current government, we're going to go right to the front and actually have the best energy efficient standards, fuel efficient standards for vehicles. That makes a huge difference. So there are tons of EVs around. There are EV trucks. There's an EV Hummer. There's EV little cars, big cars. There's tons of EV around, but not here. Why not here? Because basically there is no incentive for the big companies to dump them, to give us them. They dump us with their fossil fuel cars because it's hard to get rid of those in Europe and Japan. Yeah. They are just like, well, we've got them all. We'll just keep selling Australia these dirty cars. Once they actually, if we put the standards in, the standards mean that they've got to supply a certain, basically, it means that they're going to have to give us more EV cars, which then brings down the price of EV cars dramatically. So we need, so please, if you, when you're voting, just vote for, there's not an election going on, so depending where you are. So basically, lobby your local MPs to get decent fuel efficiency standards, and that will make a huge difference. However, in the meantime, electric is still more expensive. So I've got to be honest about it. It is buying it is like 20 to 30% more than not buying an electric car, like for like. And I mean, it depends though, because like a Tesla, the posh end of the Tesla is the same price as a like for like BMW or other car. So actually, that Tesla's not that much more expensive than a like-for-like car at that top end. Whereas if you're going out towards the bottom end, then the difference is like the MG is the electric MG is more than 50% more than the petrol version. It's a lot better car though. I've driven both, and it's such a better car, but it makes it unaffordable. And really, the cheapest EV when I last looked that you can get in Australia new is about 45 or 45-ish. Yeah, so that's a lot more expensive than your cheapest poison death dealing petrol car. And even with petrol hovering around $2 a litre, subsidies and incentives from governments of much cheaper servicing, because there's not much that goes wrong. It's your brake pads and your tires. I reckon it would take, even with the best deal you can get, it still take 5 years to be more cost effective if you were driving 20,000 kilometers a year. So charging off solar like we do, then that fuel is free, which is great, and that might bring that down. But unless you're at the posh end, you know, your Jaguar I-Pace, your BMW, you know, one of those, or the high-end Teslas, when really it's about the same price and it's not a lot in it. So it's definitely going to be a better option. But if you're just a normal person, then and you're just getting an electric car because you know it's the right thing to do, then it is going to take you a while to basically pay it back at the moment. Until fuel standards are brought into Australia, that's going to make a big difference. Sure, people talk about getting the charges around. The charges aren't a problem for 80 or 90% of all Australians. There's plenty of charges when you're traveling around. More is good. I don't want to discourage governments from putting more in. But the big problem is fuel efficiency standards. And whatever you do, even now, if you're burning petrol right now, your kids are going to be paying for that in the future.
No, fair play. Well, we'll delve deeper into fuel efficiency standards with the content that you might be reading this on, which is one of our blogs. So we'll have obviously covered that in a bit more detail to give you guys more information on that. And once again, as Sean said, certainly do lobby your local government. We just finished a local election here in Victoria. So I'm not going to talk about the politics in this conversation, but, you know, hopefully our governments, local government and federal government, will move us towards where we need to be, which would be great. But we are running out of time, Sean. But what I do want to cover off in this conversation is also WWF Australia. No, we're not talking about wrestling. We are talking about one of the greatest charities Australia has. Can you just talk to us very quickly about what's going on with WWF right now, and you know, what particular causes they're supporting, which you know, will move us towards a zero carbon future?
So I know the biggest challenges for WWF are actually the biggest challenges for the world, really, the same as everyone, not unique to us. It's climate change. That's the biggest challenge. There's lots of other things, and we mustn't take our eye off lots of other things as well. So species loss, and yes, climate change has an impact on that as well. You know, oceans, the Great Barrier Reef degradation. There's more than just climate change happening, but the most important thing is we have to stop burning fossil fuels. We have to stop. We have to have policies at every level about stopping burning fossil fuels globally. That is the most important thing that has to happen. So in terms of what we're doing now, you asked me to pick three key things. The first isn't really a project, it's policy. So I've gone on about policy. Policy is so important. WWF's relationships with governments and big businesses are very strong in terms of influence and working with them. We're usually consulted whenever policy is being discussed. So that's a really, really important area. But away from climate, well, not really, because climate is everything, but not surprisingly, given it's the World Wildlife Fund for Nature, wildlife. So that's a really, really important thing there. And climate isn't the only threat there. It's land clearing and deforestation. In Australia, we are world leaders. Hey, we watched this just after watching us win the football. Sorry if that's a spoiler for anybody. So we got through to the next set. Yay, we're doing well in the soccer, but we're also doing really well in destroying more forests and trees than anybody else in the world. So we're really smart there. We would definitely be in the semi-finals or even the final at destroying forests. So we're very good at that. Wow. So we really need to stop that. It's an appalling record. WWF is doing a lot of work there, including the 2 Billion Trees initiative. I met Pat Rafter because I went over and helped plant some trees on his property. He's doing a bit of a thing on the border to help create koala corridors. And so part of the Regenerate Australia program, which has been funded and is being funded, because we still need more donations, by hundreds of thousands of amazing Australians and overseas people donating actually to help species like the koala. I would encourage listeners to check out the wwf.org.au. I think you're going to put a link in there. Maybe you could adopt a koala for Christmas, which is a really nice thing to do, or get a birthday present of a koala. But please sign the petition. I don't know if you put the petition link in or just the general link. But there's tons and tons and tons of other projects that WWF is involved with, including in microfinance in the Solomon Islands and all sorts of things. Really smart programs, working with locals, working on the ground to just have influence, change policy, but also to do practical things like planting trees, funding and supporting wildlife hospitals and things like that. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sean. There's going to be We're going to delve even further into the conversation I'm having with Sean as well on our blog. So if you're only listening to this and have not seen this podcast off the back of the blog, do jump onto our website at energymatters.com.au and look at our latest news, and you'll be able to read a more in-depth conversation that we've had with Sean, which covers off a lot more detail around these topics, and actually how you can help as well, which would be amazing. Sean, thank you so much for your time today. We really do appreciate it. You've been an absolute legend.
Thank you, and thank you very much. If you're listening to this, then you care about the environment and you care about the wildlife and nature. So thank you very much.
No, good, man. All right, thanks, Sean. So, guys, to finish up, firstly, thank you for listening and watching today. Before we do, once again, finish, if you haven't got solar power as yet on your building, and like Sean, you'd like to get yourself a 20 kilowatt or any type of solar system on that roof, jump onto our website and please click the button to get free solar quotes, and we'll connect you to one of your local installers who will be able to assist you find and identify the correct system for you, and hopefully at a price that's affordable as well. You can also get a free energy bill comparison via our website. And if you're going to go for an energy bill assessment, as Sean indicated, you can actually get green plans. So do look at what plans are available, not just the biggest discount or the lowest rate, but a plan that actually does offer you 100% renewable energy. It will cost you a little bit more per kilowatt hour, but once again, have a look at the numbers and just see if you can make that work. Feel free to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And by all means, please do follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. It'll be awesome to see you guys there, and you can catch up with everything that we're up to. For now, thank you very much for your time, for listening, for watching, and we can't wait to see you again next week. All the best.